Hello everyone, this is Josh Bersin. Today I'm going to talk about talent intelligence in a world of change. And change pretty much defines what's been going on. The background for this presentation, first of all, is a piece of research we did with Eightfold earlier this year and late last year that really talks about why talent intelligence platforms have become so critical. And it is really a new market. And there's really four issues. The first is the labor market, which has been going through incredible disruption. I'll explain that in a minute. The second is the way people work. Thanks to the pandemic, everyone was freed from their offices and their traditional office locations and the nature of their jobs and actually their employment contracts. So there's a lot of changes there. The third is, of course, the transformation of every business model and the need for companies to get into all sorts of new technologies and industries. And the fourth is your need for data. We can't intelligently invest in the right HR and talent strategies if we don't know, where to spend our time and money. And that's really what this presentation is about. Now, to get started, what we're really dealing with in most companies today is not just the pandemic. It's a 13-year business transformation that's been going on since 2008. You can see from the stock market chart here that the pandemic was a big disruption, but it wasn't that big of a change. Just digital transformation, AI, automation, globalization, integrated supply chains, highly diverse talent pools, the need to address income inequality, political instability. These things were going on before the pandemic, and they really got highlighted during the pandemic. And I think they're happening even faster because we're now in a world where the unemployment rate is almost at an all-time low. In the United States, it's reaching, probably will go below 4% over the next couple of months. And in May, there were so many jobs created that 4 million Americans quit to go get a new job. That's the highest quit rate that the United States has ever seen in the history of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 2.7 to 2.8% of Americans just decided they were fed up with their jobs and they were going to try something new. And what that means, the reason for that, is because people feel that they have mobility. They feel they can change jobs. They're working from home. They see opportunities in adjacent industries. And a lot of people are willing to move just for a little bit of money. We talked to manufacturers and retailers who told me people have accepted jobs in their companies and then not shown up for the first day of work. And when they call them on the phone, they say, well, I got another job for 50 cents more an hour somewhere else, so I'm not coming. So those are sort of the challenges of organizations at all levels. And they really fit into a long, broad, context of many, many things. As I'm showing you on this chart, virtually every business transformation that took place in every industry, whether it was delivery, online commerce, subscription models, or healthier products and services, resulted in a new talent model or a new set of jobs or roles for people. And so HR has become, instrumental in this. By the way, if you don't believe me about the labor market, this is data from 30 days ago, so it's very recent. There are now close to 14 million jobs open in the United States. The United States only has 160 million workers, so that's a lot. It's up 33% year over year. At one point, it was up over 40% year over year. And this is causing, a lot of searching for new people because no matter how efficient your company is and how automated you become, you're still dependent on people. And as I'll show you in a couple of minutes, talent intelligence doesn't mean just hiring more bodies. It means hiring the right people into the right roles to accelerate and improve your business model going forward. Now, another piece of data that came from Eightfold that I want to point out is on this chart. In response to this both disrupted and very competitive labor market, companies are doing a lot of internal mobility. And so, many of you probably have internal mobility as a high priority. And the reason for that isn't just because it's a good thing for people, but it's sometimes the only way to find people to fit roles. This data shows that upwards of 40 to 50% of the hiring that's taken place so far this year has been either internal mobility, internal employees, the blue line, or previous applicants who are now called silver medalists, people who either didn't get the job or recently left the company or coming back. So you need intelligence to do that. And a significant number of these people are now working in new contract relationships. This chart, the Pixelated Workforce, actually comes from a piece of research I did in 2019. And at that point in time, what we found was that most companies had a very high percentage of their workforce in a non-traditional labor relationship, an hourly, a gig job, a contractor, but they didn't know who they were. They weren't located in the HR systems. They were viewed as vendors or contractors in some other financial system. That is now becoming a highly strategic part of growing your company. And if you don't manage it well, as this chart shows, you're going to miss out on the future of work, because the future of work is people disassociating their careers from their employers. Your career is your career, and your employer is just an employer at this point in time, and it will be a different employer and a different job going forward. And so this is even more bigger, sort of ammunition for this issue. And one more piece of data while I'm sort of shocking you guys with what's been going on. In the last year, roughly 1 in 4 employees changed employers, 1 in 4 employees changed occupations, 1 in 5 changed companies, and a very significant number of women left the workforce to take care of kids who are home because of school or other issues. So this is not a theoretical issue. This is a real issue. People are comfortable with this kind of change, and it's now incumbent upon you as an HR leader or a business person to figure out how to adapt. Now, this chart, which I will take just a minute and talk about, is really the 8 big collision factors that are happening all at once in organizations. And this is really, to me, the 8 big issues that are driving the need for talent intelligence. The labor shortage and the changes in demographics. And by the way, the birth rate is down too, so the labor shortage isn't going to just disappear overnight. Although more people will come into the workforce as wages go up, the increase in gig and contract work, the need to be diverse in your sourcing and hiring, not just because it's a good thing to do and it's the right thing to do, but it's the only way to find people, because there aren't enough people of a given group or class to fill the jobs that you have. Improving retention, which not only makes it easier to grow the company, but also gives you a better employment brand. If people like working there, they tell their friends about it, you're more likely to get better job candidates. Improving internal mobility and having intelligence as to who should go to what job internally. Creating a better leadership pipeline amongst young people, and I'll show you some data on that. Younger workers are expecting you to teach them how to become leaders and have more responsible jobs. That is a major initiative that has not gone away. The need for a clear understanding of the skills in your company today and the skills you need to grow in the adjacent industries and domains. And then coming up with some form of a job architecture that puts this all into one place. And I'll show you a little bit about what that means. Now, in terms of HR, you guys have been adapting too. If there's anything that I've been talking to companies about the last year, it's the reskilling, upskilling, and agile cross-functional nature of HR. Over the last 2 years, issues of public health, work at home, hybrid work, resilience, well-being, mental health, new models of leadership, human-centered leadership, belonging, diversity, inclusion. These are in every single company now, and they're in the role of every HR manager. And we've built and been working on building a much more agile, sort of distributed model for HR to address that. Talent intelligence is a critical part of this new role. Now, one of the critical things, before I tell you a little bit about what talent intelligence is the way work has changed. I mentioned earlier that your business model is impacted by who you hire. One of the things that's been really striking to me about the economy in maybe the last 6, 7, 8 years is, we thought that automation was going to do away with jobs and that a significant number of people would be basically unemployed. That has not happened. There are so many jobs, we don't have enough people. Why? Because as automation enters a job, whatever the job is, including my job, by the way, as an analyst, you become more of a service worker. 90% of the jobs in the United States today are classified as service jobs, not in service industries, but they're human service jobs. Selling, designing, creating, serving, healthcare jobs, even software engineering, I would suggest, is a service job because the human being doing the engineering is using automated tools and listening and creating and curating and designing based on human input. And what this means when there's all these service jobs is that humans become a more fungible resource. You aren't in a job because you know how to work this lathe or screw this bolt into this tire or whatever the old routine work used to be. You are, in a sense, a value creator in the company as an employee. And so companies at the same time have been disintegrating their hierarchies. Now, I built this chart in 2016 when I was working on a big research study, and it has become true now that most of you are very familiar with the fact that employees do have managers and we do have hierarchies, but on a day-to-day basis, you're working on multiple things, you have multiple teams, you have multiple leaders or project managers you're associating with. So what you do, how you do it, your reputation, your skills, your experience really define your success. And so we've been trying to figure out how to build systems that intelligently allow people and HR managers and business managers to build the right pathway for each individual. Now, this chart is an example of a career pathway in a traditional frontline job. But, in every role in business, there are adjacent jobs that are appropriate that you wouldn't know about if you didn't have good intelligence. To give you a good example, one of the most critical jobs in IT today is cybersecurity, as you can imagine. Everybody's looking for cybersecurity people. And, if you didn't know a lot about it, you would assume that a cybersecurity expert is a database manager or an IT person, somebody who works on lots of tools, knows how ERP systems work, etc. Actually, that's not true. Cybersecurity specialists are very much like financial auditors. They're detail-oriented people who can dig into things that seem out of line and use all sorts of analytic tools to find problems. And yeah, they need to understand IT systems too, but that's not really the core of the job. So the career pathway to becoming a cybersecurity analyst is not to go take a course on database administration. It's actually to learn about how to become a really, really good auditor. We now know that exists, but if you don't have that data, you might not find that you have a significant number of people that are ready for a role right inside your company that you weren't aware of. And this is what Eightfold does, is Eightfold really has the intelligence to allow you to do this. The other issue, of course, when we're working in service-related jobs is that if you're burnt out or tired or overworked or stressed or unclear about the responsibilities that you have, you don't do your work well and the company doesn't perform. And we've gone through about the greatest amount of work and human stress that most of us have ever been through in our lives. And so companies are piling money into well-being programs, mental health programs, yoga, mindfulness, all sorts of interesting things. I was just on the phone with a large software company a couple weeks ago, and they told me they have 275 benefits programs for their employees. Now, that's another form of talent intelligence. Do you need all that? Are you getting a return on all that? Who's consuming what? That's a very important issue. And it now makes up close to 32% of wages in the United States are spent on these things. And so right now, it's a world of experimentation. Let's raise pay. Let's give unlimited vacation. Let's let people work at home. Let's give people new PCs. Let's give them fertility benefits. Anything you can find. And so, in a sense, this human service economy has created a really vast demand for better intelligence about what's going to work. The final thing I'll just mention on this topic is the issue of productivity. You can study, people at work and their engagement, and you can do surveys and get all sorts of biopsychology data about somebody and determine if they're in the right role. But ultimately, the way you know if they're in the right role is productivity. Are they hitting their numbers? Is the job getting done? Are the customers happy? Are the stakeholders happy? And every study I've looked at and all of my personal experience shows that the number one driver of engagement is productivity. So one of the things we have to do as HR people, especially now as we have a tight labor market, is we have to create an employee experience that is productive for everyone. And you're all working on that. That's a massive initiative in HR. It crosses between HR and IT and facilities and sometimes legal. And it's a design problem. And I would suggest that there's another dimension of talent intelligence on what is our EX, where do we have problems, where could we be doing better. We just published a case study of Bank of America, and the head of the talent business in the consumer bank did a pretty big study of the productivity and the bank balances and the financial performance of the consumer bank, and they came to the conclusion that the biggest driver of poor financial performance was low tenure. In other words, when there's a lot of turnover and a branch or a location has a lot of junior or less experienced people, the customers basically feel a different experience. There's less knowledge in the branches, and the financial performance suffers. So the answer to that problem is to get people to stay longer. Well, how do you get them to stay longer? It's not that simple. Is it who you hire? Is it how you manage them? Is it how you pay them? So what they basically did is they did a pretty detailed study of all of the factors that were driving people to leave and identified a series of experiences monitored by surveys that will dramatically improve engagement and retention, and their retention rate skyrocketed and their financial performance as well. And that's a great example of talent intelligence. If you want to read that case study, it's on our website. Now, before I get into the tech part of this, let me just make one more point. A big part of what's changed is not just jobs in the labor market and the fact that there's kind of a big economic boom, but the philosophies of management. Management philosophies to me are a fascinating topic, and they change over time. And usually people tend to follow, the CEO of the highest performing company of the day. It used to be everybody wanted to be like GE, then everybody wanted to be like Google, then everybody wanted to be like Starbucks. Now I don't know what you want to be like. Do you want to be like Amazon? I'm not sure. But what has happened is the highest performing companies are now led in a new model. The model is that of empathy, trust, and change, and well-being. And this new management philosophy affects everything. It means that we have to listen to people more. It means we have to give them more flexibility. It means we have to respect them as individuals. It means we have to be patient and humble when problems occur, which obviously we've been having plenty of those over the last year or two. We call these power skills. And these are the skills that people want in leadership and in lower level management too. We wrote a whole piece on this called Human-Centered Leadership, and what it's really about is using the intelligence you have to make better people decisions that in turn will make the company more successful. Every business problem that you ever have as an individual, a manager, or a leader always comes down to people. I know that sounds kind of glib to say it, but it's true. You can look at the problem as a business problem on the left, or you can look at the problem as a people problem on the right. And what we're finding is that when you get the right amount of data and you're intelligent about the system, the company, the society that you have inside your organization, you will make far better decisions. The other thing that I just want to highlight before we get into the technology is this interesting change from conformity to individuality. And this is a little bit of a philosophical topic, but I just want to bring it up. When I got out of college in 1978, it seems like so long ago now, the number one thing that I wanted in my career, and all my friends who were all engineers, was conformity. Show me how to be just like everybody else so I can join a big company, get a good job, get on a career path, and my life will be good. And that was the way the society worked. That was the way the business world worked. That was the way the economy worked. That was the way careers worked. Today, it's completely different. Everybody wants to be an individual. We all want to have our own Twitter, Instagram, TikTok feeds. People want to have different genders. There are more than 40 genders in the workforce. I might want to have a tattoo. Somebody wants to shave their head, paint their hair green. I mean, these are not bad things. They're just the reality of society today. And so we have to build an experience at work that accommodates that. And if we do, obviously within the boundaries of what we need to do as a company, we will create a great company. And so one of the things that's happened to accommodate this, the change in organization structure and the change in individual needs, is this idea of the organization as a marketplace, what we now call a talent marketplace. Now, Eightfold is a big player in this market. This is one of the biggest changes in technology that's happened. Rather than wait for your manager to recommend you for a new job or tell you when you're ready for a new job, or maybe your manager doesn't know that there's a new job available for you, you go out and look on your own. And your company starts to look more like a marketplace for talent and less like a management-led, deterministic career model. And this is very important because in a time of change, when things happen fast, we don't have time to ask a bunch of managers who's available or interested in taking this new position. A, they won't let them go. Or B, they don't know who really the appropriate people are for this. So using AI and intelligent data, products like Eightfold can help you create this new model of mobility. And there's, I won't go through this in detail, but some companies do it as career models. Sometimes companies do it for directed changes for new initiatives. We're starting a new program on this. We need 10 people or 20 people or 50 people to go do this. And some people just do this as a way of managing the company going forward, working on different projects, having new opportunities all the time to work on. Now, where does talent intelligence fit into this? I think the first concept before getting into the technology is that you have to remember and sort of consider that every lack of talent is not a scarcity problem, it's a development problem. Rather than wait to find someone on the outside who may or may not have ever had this job before, you have to create a person who has the skills or the the role that you need to follow a job. Because people are re-educatable human beings. In fact, I've always felt that of all the things that happen in HR, maybe the most important domain is learning. Because human beings are learning animals. The minute you're born, you're learning how to speak and then how to walk and then how to get along with people and then read and so forth. We're always learning. And so at work, in companies, we're always upskilling or we're reskilling or we're reinventing ourselves, and it never stops. I've been doing this my whole life, and I consider it to be, maybe one of the most important things I can do as an analyst is always learn what's going on. And this is happening inside of companies. Now, the abundance mentality will teach you that people can reinvent themselves a lot easier than you think. Let me show you two pieces of data on that. This is a study that was done by, I think, the World Economic Forum on a series of different technical jobs, looking at people who did not have the technical skills on those jobs. And they found, on average, in many cases, you could retrain or reskill someone to take one of these jobs in a period of months, not years. It does make you question higher education a tiny bit, but we won't get into that. Now, this second one is a study that I did with several companies looking at frontline workers and data scientists, both of whom are different. And we found that in both of those cases, it was less expensive to retrain or reskill an internal candidate than it was to go out and find somebody at the outside. In fact, in the case of data scientists, it was 6 times cheaper, 1/6 the price or cost, to train and move somebody internally than it was to bring in somebody from the outside. The reason is, of course, it's expensive to hire people. You have to pay recruiting fees, you have to pay bonuses, and they don't always stay. Now, you need good intelligence to do that because not everybody is a good fit to be a data scientist, and not everybody is a good fit to go into a different job in front line. So what's going on in these tools like Eightfold is we're decomposing jobs into roles and from roles into capabilities and skills. Eightfold, for example, has this sort of amazingly intelligent database that can look at anybody or any role, and it can determine an individual's potentials or likely skills based on where they've worked, who they've worked for, what jobs they've had, and a whole variety of other pieces of information you have inside your company. And so you are essentially now able to make this picture work using a talent intelligence platform like Eightfold. Now, what we advise companies to do, by the way, is to work on the human curation of the business capabilities from the skills. Because as you know, salespeople at your company don't do the same thing as salespeople at another company, even though they may have similar skills. So you still have to take this data and make it relevant to the jobs that you're hiring for and growing in. But this is an incredible innovation. Now, the problem, of course, is that this data is not all in one place. If you look at skills alone, there are at least 5 places where skills data already resides, and most of you have all 5 of these. There's the skills data that comes from content providers like Coursera, LinkedIn, Udemy, Udacity, where you may have data about who took one course and what courses are available. There's the data in your learning platform, who's completed what curriculum, who's consuming what content, who's tagged themselves as interested in a topic. There's the taxonomies you buy off the shelf. So let's suppose, you're an IT company and you want to build a bunch of skills in some new web service. You can buy a set of skills in that area from MZ or Burning Glass or other companies, and then it'll tell you all of the skills in the job market that are needed for that. You can load that into your systems. There's the skills data in your recruiting system. No matter what recruiting system you have, I guarantee you it's reading resumes and trying to figure out what this person knows, and it's reading your job descriptions and it's trying to match these two things together. So there's essentially a skills ontology in there. And then there's the ones you built already. Your leadership model, your operational skills model, the safety skills you require in your manufacturing plants. All this stuff is part of creating a talent intelligence system. And what products like Eightfold and others are designed to do is to take this information and bring it into one place so you can make sense of it. Because you need to decide, first of all, there's too many duplications of the same skill, so you don't know, it's called one thing in the recruiting system and another thing in the learning system and something else in the talent mobility system. You want to know who's highly skilled in a given area, who's not. Just because this person took a bunch of courses, well, this other person's had a bunch of project assignments. Which one's more skilled? I mean, there's a whole bunch of use cases like that. And how do you take new data coming in from the job market and the new capabilities you need to develop and bring them into the system? For example, most of the energy companies, Exxon, Chevron, Shell, they're all trying to get into alternative energy. They want to get into electrical energy, solar energy, and all sorts of batteries and other technology. They don't have lots of skills in those areas. They don't know what they don't know. So they're very, anxiously working on projects to either buy companies or develop those capabilities. That's the kind of thing that goes into a skills taxonomy. In fact, one of the world's largest defense contractors told me they go through their skills taxonomy every year as a strategic project driven by the CEO. And they look at the top 100 skills they need to succeed in the year ahead. And then they run around inside the company and see where are we weak and what do we need to do to hire or develop the skills in those areas so they can compete on the best possible government contracts. Now, getting back to what Eightfold is all about, this is a data nirvana. I mean, there's a lot of data here. We have data on people's experiences and jobs and histories. We have data on people's performance ratings and activities. We have data on their skills, and the various data are related to skills. We need it for self-assessment and promotion and who's ready to take on the next responsibility. We need it for recruiting and job matching when we're looking for people. We need it for selection for critical roles, hypo programs, and we need it for rewarding people, deciding who's ready to be promoted, who needs a raise. I mean, compensation data is related to this too. So as we talk about in the white paper, this is a critical issue. In fact, this chart, which is something I put together just particularly for this presentation, is 3, 6, 9, 12. This is whatever it is, 15 significant areas of talent intelligence that I guarantee you are probably working on somewhere in your company. Now, this data is out there. I mean, some of it's in Workday, some of it's in SAP, some of it's in the learning management system, some of it's somewhere else. But the product of companies like of Eightfold is to bring this together into an intelligent form so that you can make these decisions more, more smartly. Now, it's not just analytics. It's not just running reports. It's more than that. It's also using outside data. And let me talk about that next. The big change that I think is going to disrupt HR systems in the next 5 to 10 years is this. Most HR technologies that you buy were built as transaction systems. In other words, some product manager got a bunch of data from customers, sat down with an engineer and a UI designer, and designed a platform to do something. It was an onboarding system, it was a recruiting system, it was an assessment system, it was a job career management system, and the software engineer or the product designed, the software company designed the workflow, and then they sold it to you, and you configured it and implemented it and used it, and you created and captured data about your workforce as a result of using that system. And it's your data, and as it grows and it gets better, you become more intelligent about what's going on in your company. Now, AI is completely different. AI figures out from the data what transactions make sense. It's a completely inverted model. Your phone, when it recommends, something, maybe that you stand up and move around, is analyzing data about the fact that you're sitting still too long, and it's got an algorithm that is learning from the data that, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon you should stand up. Whatever. The recruiting systems are doing this. The learning systems are doing this as well. This is a significant change in architecture. No software engineer decided that at 2 o'clock on Fridays you're going to stand up. That was decided by the data. And so the new world of HR tech is not just intelligent systems to design and implement transactions, but systems that leverage and use all sorts of data. And not just the data inside of your company, the data outside of your company. Let's suppose you're hiring somebody, you're a pharmaceutical company and you're hiring a scientist to perform a very significant role, and you can't find anybody in the market that's ever done that job. They're just not available. Well, you can find scientists who have the domain expertise and maybe have worked on similar projects in other companies. That type of external data is critical to your ability to hire the right person. And that means that vendors like Eightfold or others have to be data companies. They can't just be transaction and software companies. In fact, I was talking with some executives the other day, and if you look at the most highly valued technology companies in the world, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they're not transaction software companies. They're data companies. They sell software and data, and they use the data to get smarter and smarter and smarter about the business they're in and the services and the offerings they provide. And that's a huge deal. That is where this is all going. And there's a lot of intricacies behind this. Vendors like Eightfold have to have good and strong and mature algorithms. They have to look at all of the adjacencies of a piece of data. Because you worked at Google doesn't mean you know a lot about machine learning, but the fact that you worked there in this year, in this project with these people on this team might imply that you know a lot about machine learning. That type of data has to be there, and all other sorts of data like that. Second, they have to be able to import data from outside. data from MZ, the job market, external skills sources, data on the economy. That makes a big difference too. They have to have a user experience that allows you to quickly identify and make sense of the data. If I look at, I used to work in business and business intelligence tools many years ago. If I look at the way business intelligence tools like Tableau and other ones are designed, they're kind of becoming out of date, to be honest. Nobody has time to sit down and design a report and slice and dice data, for hours and hours and hours to see if there's some kind of analogy or relationship here. I mean, you can do that if you're an analyst. It's kind of fun. You want the system to do that for you. So there's a whole bunch of new user experiences required for these platforms to be intelligent and to make you intelligent. So you're not sitting in some reporting tool for the next 3 weeks trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's the vendor thinking about themselves as a data company, creating a quality platform, giving you rights to data, being careful about GDPR, and making sure that the data is clean and accurate. If you think about LinkedIn, when you hire LinkedIn or you use LinkedIn Recruiter, which is, one of the bigger revenue businesses in recruiting, you're not just getting a tool. You're getting a giant database of people intelligently linked and intelligently made available to you as a recruiter. Every system in HR really needs to operate that way, and that's really what talent intelligence is all about. Now, the vendors in the HR space are all at different levels of maturity on this. And I'm a little nervous about upsetting some people, but let me give you some ideas. The vendors on the left, to me, are the vendors that have really spent a significant amount of time in the last 3 to 5 years thinking about their role as technology companies, AI companies, and data companies. Eightfold, as you know, is a data company, not just a technology company. ADP has been selling and integrating compensation, wage, labor data into their solutions for years. Beamery does this for candidate relationship management. EdCast does this for learning and actually just launched a whole studio of tools for you to identify and build and match external data into your internal data for skills. And Pymetrics does this for recruiting. They actually have a database of candidates that have gone through Pymetrics assessments available to clients who are not necessarily using Pymetrics with those people. So they're building a talent network as well. The companies in the middle are all getting there. Every one of these companies in the middle sees the opportunity to build a more data-driven solution. And some of them, like the talent marketplace systems, do this now, and Workday and others, for you, but they don't do it across companies. They may not have the right licensing agreements, they may not have built their businesses that way, but they're aware of the opportunity. And of course, the engagement vendors have been doing this for years. When you buy an engagement survey and use Pymetrics or Perceptix, for example, or Qualtrics or Medallia, you will get benchmark data from them. And then on the companies on the right, I think they're still thinking about it. They're trying to figure out their role. And, on top of that, of course, is this massive issue of how do you get to all this stuff? Maybe the biggest disruption in HR tech, in addition to the data and intelligence of these systems, has been the ease of use and the ease of application to your various different business applications. This is a chart that comes from my report, The Definitive Guide to HR Technology. It's a little hard to say. And what we basically discovered in this research is that of the thousands of vendors building different solutions for HR, the ones that are growing the fastest, the ones that are most successful, not only are they data platforms and AI-enabled and intelligence systems, but they're also journey and experiential platforms that allow you to create experiences of different kinds for different employees in your company. This idea of buying something, configuring it, and rolling it out, that is now added to tweaking it, editing it, modifying it, configuring it, changing it, curating it so that it fits your environment. And that's a massive change in the whole HR tech market. Let me sort of wrap up here with a couple of thoughts for you in HR. Not only is the technology market changing and intelligence systems are becoming more important, and we're all becoming, in a sense, armchair data scientists with intelligence systems like Eightfold, we or you as HR professionals are changing as well. In fact, I think this is the last few years that I've been working on our academy. The fundamental role of HR has massively changed. You are now being asked to adapt to and deal with and design solutions that you can't build or buy off the shelf. I mean, it would be nice if you could just copy what your peers did and just do the same thing. But A, you can't because you don't have exactly the same environment they do. B, your company is different. Your culture is different. Your workforce is different. The demographics of your workforce is different. Your regulatory environment might be different. So what we're really doing in HR now is we're working in cross-functional teams to design and develop the employee experience, recruiting, mobility, leadership, development solutions that are best for us. And yes, we'd like to use as much data as possible. We do this with the business. We co-create. We don't do it in a vacuum. We don't hire a consultant and turn it over to them and hope they do the right thing. We have to sit down, roll up our sleeves, and do it with the business, and we do it in an iterative way. By the way, one of the things I think is really cool about Eightfold is they do a lot of iterative development. You can buy Eightfold and you can go to the engineering team and say, hey, I'd like to build a module that does so-and-so, and they'll do that for you. And that's kind of a new breed of software company that they're able to do that. For you as an HR professional, it means you need to keep up. And, I always use the analogy of an engineer. Engineers are becoming what we call full stack engineers. They don't just know the database or the middleware or the application. They know everything. They know a little bit about the UI. They know about mobile. They understand HTML. They understand data. That's really what's going on in HR, is you need to be familiar with all these different issues. We know, for example, in our research in our academy, we have what is called the Global Capability Project, HR Capability Project, and we have assessed the HR capabilities of more than 4,000 HR people, and of course we'd love to have you join us. And we have gone to companies who have correlated their HR capabilities against their employee retention, engagement, and productivity in different business units, and found that one of the strongest correlations to a high-performing business area is the skills and capabilities of the HR team. Because when the HR team's playing well and is on top of their game, you hire better, you pay better, you manage better, you perform better, you engage people better. And so we can pretty much prove to you that in addition to using great technology, this is also about you. Understanding the capabilities that you need as a practitioner, as a recruiter, as a learning person, as a business partner, being forward focused in your capabilities and learning, and using that information to be a consultant and a trusted advisor to your company. And finally, one more point, since we're talking about intelligence and data, and that is trust. Trust is critical. We're in a world today, this is brand new data from the Element Trust Barometer, where people don't trust the media, they don't trust the politics very much. They may or may not trust their local community, a little more trusted there, but they do trust you as an employer, they trust CEOs, and they trust their company. And most of us spend good 2/3 of our lives working, maybe a half, and so we're spending a lot of time and a lot of invested in human energy. You own that trust. So your initiative in intelligence and recruiting, in mobility and development, in leadership, has to be based on trust. Trust requires three things. It requires competence, doing the job well. It requires ethics, being fair and inclusive, using data to make decisions. Don't hire somebody because they went to a college that you like. Hire them because they're the right person for the job. And it requires listening, continuously getting information from people and paying attention to what they're saying. If you do those three things, run your company well with good data, be a fair and equitable employer using data to be transparent, and you listen and pay attention to what people are asking, you will build a trusted organization. And the people at the Great Place to Work company told me that trust is the #1 driver of employment brand. It'll make it easier to hire, it'll make people happier, it'll improve retention, improve overall performance. So that's kind of the story of talent intelligence. There's a lot going on. We have the disruption of the labor market, the rapid growth in the economy, the incredibly important role of internal mobility and development and re-skilling and upskilling and reinvention of people internally, and this new era of talent platforms that give you an integrated view of that data in an intelligent and predictive way. I just want to thank Eightfold for the opportunity to give you this presentation. I hope you find it helpful, and please contact me if you'd like any more information on any of these topics. Thank you.